I decided to do my persuasive speech on why rock and metal are the best genres of music. My purpose is to persuade others, such as yourselves, to listen to rock and metal. And rock and metal can appeal to many people, such as yourselves, in your emotions. So, I don't know about anybody else, but I feel best when I can relate to other people or have common ground with them. This makes me feel better and like I'm not alone or so different after all from everybody else. And I believe that the connections that we make with music is so important. And this is why I listen to rock and metal. There are so many different subgenres of rock and metal, enough that nearly anyone can enjoy at least one of them. Rock and metal can cover some of the most controversial or emotional topics you could think of. They can, and since music can be listened to and felt by anyone of any language, it can be fun to listen to new music such as rock and find similarities with people you otherwise never would. I would love to explain the different types of rock and metal, as well as the emotions that can be felt by the genres that they belong to and the emotions that they can convey. So, without further ado, I would love to introduce some new music to you. To begin with, some of the more common subgenres of rock are progressive, punk, alternative, indie, funk, and classic. So, when I was searching to see which bands fit into their subjective subgenres, I used the website Rolling Stone along with some others. Progressive or prog rock uses classical influences. Punk rock is basically meant for people who are nonconformist or rebellious, and The Offspring is one of those bands. Alternative rock is characterized as unconventional, which would explain why grunge fits into this subgenre, and includes bands like Nirvana and Pearl Jam. Alternative rock is indie rock is defined as bands that independently produce their own music. And funk rock is a genre that fuses elements of funk and rock together. And Red Hot Chili Peppers is one of those bands, and probably the most common one. And then classic rock is basically rock from the time period between the 1960s and the mid-1990s, which includes many bands, but Fleetwood Mac is one of those. Now that rock has been covered, I will get into some of the subgenres of metal. So some of you may be wondering, what is the difference between rock and metal? The only difference, according to the website, the difference between is that where rock has a lighter distortion, metal has a stronger distortion. And it's defined as being heavier. So that being said, some of the most common genres of metal are metalcore, thrash, progressive, deathcore, and nu metal. And when I was searching for these subgenres, I used the website Loudwire along with some others. So metalcore, which is probably one of my favorites, combines elements of extreme metal and hardcore punk, and includes bands such as Of Mice and Men and Asking Alexandria. Thrash metal is characterized by aggression and a fast tempo and includes bands such as Metallica. Progressive metal is defined as combining loud aggression with an amplified guitar sound. And some of the bands to popularize this genre, one of the bands to popularize this genre, have been Avenged Sevenfold. But Avenged Sevenfold fits into a bunch of different categories. And then deathcore, which is another one of my favorites, combines death metal and metalcore to create its own unique sound, and includes bands such as Whitechapel, who are from Knoxville, and Lorna Shore, who won Album of the Year in 2022. So nu metal fuses heavy metal and with other styles of music such as hip hop, and one of those bands is Disturbed. And since the genres have been covered, I will go over some of the emotions that allow individuals such as yourselves to relate to some of these bands or songs that they have. So some of the emotions would be that you can feel are love, sadness, anger, happiness, depression, disgust, fear, anxiety, mental illness, and although this is not an emotion, I included religion. So love can be associated with the end of heartache by Killswitch Engage. Sadness can be associated with Pain Remains, 1, Dancing Like Flames, but you could also include 2 or 3, and that's by Lorna Shore. Anger can be associated with I Hate Everything About You by 3 Days Grace. Happiness and Getting Back Up Again can be associated with Rise Above This by Seether, which is on this CD. Depression can be associated with Fade to Black by Metallica or Paint It Black by the Rolling Stones. Happiness and... I already said happiness. Disgust, as in being disgusted with other people, can be associated with Elitist Ones by Whitechapel. Fear can be associated with Fear of the Dark by Iron Maiden. Anxiety can be associated with Strife by Trivium. Mental illness can be associated with Voices by Disturbed, which is on this album. And religion can be associated with Alive by POD or I'm Alive by Flyleaf. So as you can see, there are many ways that we can all relate to rock and metal based on emotions alone. This list only touches the surface on how we can emotionally relate to these genres and does not even include song lyrics that we can relate to. So ultimately, no matter what you go through, there is a rock or metal song that you can listen to either feel better or feel related to or listen to. This is why I believe that rock and metal are the best genres of music. Thank you.